Because if we introduce an ID card scheme and reduce identity fraud, that makes a major difference to the costs of government, to the costs of doing business. And in today's world, if we want to tackle illegal migration, crime and identity fraud, then using the new biometric technology to have ID cards is an important part of doing so.
For reasons no one else can understand or explain, the British government is very keen to spend a lot of money on what could be a very bad idea. Like many of Keir Starmer's freshest flagship policies, the universal and mandatory digital ID idea was never actually endorsed by the electorate. But regardless of the wishes of the pesky UK public, Number 10 is looking to plough ahead with the unpopular policy after its promotion by the increasingly influential Tony Blair Institute.
Yeah, and look, I think digital ID is the upgrade that Britain needs and that Britain deserves. I think it's really simple, and your viewers will get this straight away, that we need to make life as difficult as possible for people who shouldn't be here, and life as easy as possible for people who should, and a digital ID is the enabler of doing that.
For his part, Blair has re-emerged in recent years as a big technology advocate, arguing that new software can fundamentally reshape how states deliver their services. The former Prime Minister, like Starmer, is a globalist who sees the Singaporean system, whereby collectivist discipline is promoted by a powerful centralised government in a highly multicultural society, as an ideal template to shape Western policies around.
So the fascinating thing about Lee Kuan Yew is he took three decisions, really three important decisions right at the beginning for Singapore. Each one of them now seems obvious. Each one at the time was deeply contested. Number one, he said, everyone's going to speak English in Singapore. Now, there were lots of people who said to him at the time, no, we've been thrown out of Malaysia effectively. We're now a fledgling country, a city-state country. We need to have our own local language, we need to be true to our roots and everything. He said, no, English is the language of the world and we're all going to speak English. Today, that's what happens in Singapore. Secondly, he said, we're going to get the best intellectual capital and management capital from wherever it exists in the world, and we're going to bring it to Singapore. And again, people said, no, we should stand on our own 2 feet. Why? And you're also bringing in the British, who we just, we've got all these disputes with. And he said, no, I'm going to bring in the best from wherever they are, and they're going to come to Singapore. Today, Singapore exports intellectual capital, right? And the third thing he did was he said there's going to be no corruption. And one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to make sure our political leaders are well paid, which the Singapore leaders are the best paid in the world by a factor of about 10 for the next person. And there's going to be zero tolerance of corruption, zero tolerance of corruption. And those are the three decisions that were instrumental in building Singapore today.
It's a technocratic expansion of New Labour's supranationalism, one which in 1998 fully extended the remit of the European Court of Human Rights into British law. A year after the introduction of the Human Rights Act, and as a rising star in London's legal world, Starmer published a 900-word book on European law. He has since gone on to promote an idealised international order, even as we move into a multipolar world. At his political core then, the Prime Minister shares the same consequentialist views as Blair, including the belief that the state has a great amount of competence to deliver complex projects, and a prima facie moral justification to limit the individual's personal liberty in the right circumstances, of course. A contrary view would come from the advocates of the natural rights and resistance theories which shaped Anglo-American thought, for example John Locke, Thomas Jefferson, Robert Nozick. They would reject such a stance, arguing that a government would considerably overreach its limited remit by interfering with a person's individual liberty in such a heavy-handed manner. On more practical matters, meanwhile, it appears that Starmer's administration, with its high levels of debt and public spending, can't actually afford digital IDs.
Whilst preserving civil liberties and privacy. And that is entirely the government's intention. No one will be stopped in the street and asked for digital ID.
The UK government has subsequently entered into a gloriously bureaucratic realm with the Office for Budget Responsibility, otherwise known as the OBR, the financial watchdog Labour championed heading into the last election. For its part, the OBR has said the Digital ID bill could surpass £1.8 billion of unfunded costs. That's Whitehall-ese for fudging the books, an accusation the government hasn't taken too kindly to. In a reply to a ministerial question tabled in the House of Commons, the government responded by saying that it didn't recognise the OBR's figures and that the scheme would be put to a public consultation. Crucially, however, we're still none the wiser as to how much Starmer thinks this policy will cost taxpayers, or how exactly the system will stop people illegally entering the country. The proof to back up these big claims is still pending and may never come, but if the Digital ID plan is forced through the Commons thanks to Labour's massive majority, will only build on Starmer's short but impressive anti-democratic resume. That currently includes limiting jury trials, cancelling elections, and, amongst other things, instructing government lawyers to oppose the wishes of directly elected local authorities. Alas, consequentialists always frame themselves as preserving the greater good.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Reid.
Well, congratulations on surviving the reshuffle. This minister as the general merriment of the nation, so we'll miss him when he's gone. But can I ask a serious question about this idea of the Prime Minister of a national digital ID card as a means of countering illegal working? But it raises a whole new spectre if tens of millions of people have an ID card on their mobile phone in their pocket, and there are malign forces, Russia and elsewhere, who will seek to attack us. So what work is the government doing in its bill, in the National Security Centre, to try and get this thing right?
Data is a wonderful thing. It's a gold mine in many ways, but it's also a potential vulnerability. And we need to make sure that if we're going to take people into a digital future with digital ID cards, or which I'm not saying that we are, but if we were to go down that route, or wherever we go, for instance, with a digital driving license, which we'll have soon, we just need to make sure that it is safe, secure, and that people aren't, that their data isn't imperiled. I don't know what he meant about me surviving.